What's up, Blackish fam? I hope all is going well in your corner of the world. I'm excited to get into some more Marlon Craft. Someone in the comment section was like, yo, you got to check out Shithole. I think this is probably a play on Donald Trump, right? Back in 2018, Trump called, what was it, Haiti? I think it was Haiti that he referred to as a shithole. It's not funny. It's funny now, but it was damn scary then when we had to deal with this guy who was ruler of the free world, and just someone that was somewhat ignorant to the world around him. And I'm really into politics, so I'm really excited about this one. But it's important to realize to note, I'm not a Democrat and I'm not a Republican, right? I consider myself a common sense independent. Someone that I don't need a party to tell me what's good or bad for me or to help make decisions, right? I like doing it based on facts. I'm really excited about this, and I definitely want to get into this. Damn, this cat looks so young, right? He's got the baby face. But this is Marlon Craft, Shitless or Shithole. I think it's called Shithole. But this is from 2018. And I think it's important to understand the context, right? What was going on in the world. I think 2016 is when Donald Trump became president. So we're 2 years into his presidency, and a lot of people are like, yo, what's the worst that could happen, right? And I think we got to see that, right, with this pandemic that went, you can argue, what are we, 900,000 plus deaths in the United States. If the pandemic might have been managed a bit differently from the start, one would argue that we wouldn't be in this position. So there's a lot going on in the world, and I think it'll be great to look back and take a step back to 2018 when we thought shit couldn't get worse, right? Without further ado, let's get right into it.
Tell me what a shithole look like. Is it a place built on the backs of enslaved people? Was taken from native people by deranged, evil, and greed, and the need to feel that we all are the same people where no one is made equal.
Whoa. I didn't even, normally I got a pretty good memory, but I didn't even catch most of that. I think he said, tell me what a shithole looked like, right? That's obviously the reference, the play on words that from Donald Trump, right? He's obviously a patriot, right? He's got the United States flag behind him. But I think he said something about it's a place built on the backs of enslaved people. It was taken from they people. And he said something about evil and greed. Let's run it back.
Tell me what a shithole look like. Is it a place built on the backs of enslaved people? Was taken from native people by hate, deranged, evil, and greed, and the need to feel that we all are the same people where no one is made equal.
He said it's taken from they people by hate and deranged, evil, and greed, and the need to feel that we're all not the same people, like we're not created equal. I think, let me just make sure.
Equal. Tell me what a shithole. People where no one is made equal. Tell me what a shithole look like. Where we move heaven and earth for a couple of men's net worth. Where we let our poor living dirt.
He said, tell me what a shithole looks like. He said, we can move heaven and earth, right? We can move the biggest things. It doesn't matter for a couple of men's net worth, right? We can move mountains if we need to plant oil lines, right, and gas lines, and run gas lines and oil lines under our ocean, and do crazy things, right? But we let our poor people live in dirt. And you want to call it a shithole because they live in dirt. Let's look at what our country did and some of the actions that we took that might have perpetuated this change to this poverty, right? Did the U.S. have a hand in this?
Oh, look like where we move heaven and earth for a couple of men's net worth. Where we let our poor live in dirt. Where lies are national, fashionable, Trump's factual. But we don't know what just is.
Right? These aren't lies. What did they call them? Alternative facts, right? They're not lies. They're just alternative facts.
Fashionable, Trump's factual. But we don't know what just is. Justice is laughable. Tell me what a shithole look like.
Justice, is he playing on ISIS? Or what just, like, whether or not something is just, but then also playing on just is, like, if it's inevitable, right? It just is because it is. But also the play on just is what justice. Ooh, I like it.
Factual, but we don't know what just is. Justice is laughable. Tell me what a shithole look like. When you get famous for being famous, we worship the mediocre. When bankers is playing poker.
Talking about social media, right? He said, we're a country where you can be famous. How do you get famous for being famous, right? Look at the Kardashian clan. Look at the Paris Hilton, right? Look at these people. Now, what exactly are they famous for? Was it the sex tape? No, they were in this position of a position of power. They had a platform, and they continued to use that platform to really hype up the media, right? And play the media to bring some would argue that the Kardashians, that's like, we don't have a king and queen here in the U.S., but we follow them like they're royalty, right?
Like, when you get famous for being famous, we worship the mediocre.
We worship the mediocre, right? That you're slightly better than average, right? You're not even anything special, but we worship you. Why? Because we all recognize your name. We all recognize what you do. It's just mediocrity, right?
Worship the mediocre. Where bankers is playing poker with people's futures, and leave them homeless, and all need to save them.
He's talking about the play on words. I think back in my day, way back in the day, I was born in the inner city of Chicago. I had a cousin that was a commodity broker, and he tried to get me out of the streets of Chicago, and he brought me to the Board of Trade in downtown Chicago, and he had me doing cold calling for him. And I was using a street address phone book to call people and see if they were interested in what's called commodities, right? Futures and options, purchasing or selling something at a given price and making a profit that way. That kind of sounds like what he's referring to. Let's run that back.
Bankers is playing poker with people's futures, and leave them homeless, and all.
Is that bankers are playing poker with people's future, right? They're gambling with people's futures, and leave them homeless. Again, I was just referring to futures and options. That's a part of commodities. It's buying in something, a future, buying something, planning for it to hit a particular price, whether it be up or down, and playing on that for profit. There's just an intellectual play on words there.
This is playing poker with people's futures, and leave them homeless, and all need is save them and leave us broken. Is that what it should look like where we send folks to die?
Run that back. I think he's talking about bailing out certain sectors of the economy, right? He said bankers are playing poker with people's futures, right? We know about the housing, the crash of the recession of 2008, right? And a lot of the big companies that were bailed out by the government, they said we build out Wall Street, but what about Main Street, right? What about your everyday people? He said our leaders save them and leave us broken, right? But they save these big box companies under the guise of being too big to fail, right?
Look like when you get famous for being famous, we worship the mediocre. Where bankers is playing poker with people's futures, and leave them homeless, and all need is save them and leave us broken. Is that what a shithole look like where we send folks to die for courage and valor in their mind, but for real to be for the purses of power?
Oh, he said, is that what a shithole looks like? Again, playing it on, are you talking about the U.S.? Are you talking about this shithole? Because look at, right, don't throw, what did they say? Don't throw rocks. If your home is made of glass, right? Look at our country, right? He said, we'll send folks to die for courage and valor, but in their mind, it's for real. But for the government, it's for the purses of power, right? And think about this, right? When the U.S. claimed that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, now I think it's common knowledge now that Iraq had no such weapons of mass destruction. So you have to ask yourself, why exactly did we invade Iraq? Because it wasn't because of 9/11. If that were the case, we would have invaded Saudi Arabia, right? Why is it that we went into Iraq? One would argue that we might have went to take control of their resources. And we're doing it under the disguise of doing something, with purpose, right? And we lost a lot of good military soldiers. Why? They died thinking it was for courage and valor, but really it's to inflate the ego, right? I think George Bush was mad that Saddam Hussein in Iraq for what they did and the interactions that his father had, George Bush Sr., So it's also for their ego, right? But one would argue that, we were just like a professional thief. We were a Debo, right? We were bullying a country, and we needed an excuse to go and invade Iraq. That's just my interpretation, but there's a lot of facts between the lines, right? I'm not saying my truth is the only truth, but I don't think America's truth is real, right? It's what's in the history books, and you might ask yourself why. Well, because it's called nationalism, right? We want to show that our country is the best. That's why when there's a map, I'm sure you guys have read, but maps are distorted, right? They show Africa is much smaller. They show the United States is much larger compared to other places. You might ask yourself, why? Well, it's because power, right? So it's really important to think of, why is it that our history books frame things a certain way? Pilgrims, the Mayflower, right? Christopher Columbus, Native American Indians, and turkey dinners, and these things didn't really happen. But we're doing that because we want to look good in our history books. We don't want to tell you that Christopher Columbus raped and killed a lot of thousands of Native American Indians, right? That wouldn't be good, just like we don't like talking about slavery. When we talk about slavery, they talk about people that migrated. We didn't migrate to the U.S. You put us on slave ships, right? We were slaves. A lot of people call them servants and all. We were slaves, right? You were whooping our ass and having sex with our women and abusing us and abusing your power. We were slaves. Let's just get right to the nitty gritty of it.
Courage and valor in their mind, but for real it be for the purses of power. And we proclaim that we kill to defend the people's rights, but install dictators just for resources and cheaper price.
Yo, he got right to it right there. Yo, my man, Marlon Craft. Bro, there's not too many people that are just knowledgeable, right? And, I talk about this, and there's so many crimes against humanity that the United States has had their hand in. But listen to what he said, right? We were just talking about fighting for, and they send people to war, right? And they die thinking it's courageous and valor. But really, it's for the purses of power. Now, what did he say? He said, we proclaim that we killed to defend the people's rights. Now, something along those lines, right? Let me just run that back to make sure I'm hearing it right.
Claim that we killed to defend the people's rights, but install dictators just for resources at cheaper price.
Yeah. So what he's talking about is when we kill. If somebody doesn't agree with us, right, a ruler of a nation, it's just like, I don't agree with the U.S. Well, the U.S. doesn't go away silently. What they do is they annihilate that leader, and they put a new leader in place that has a U.S. perspective, right? Someone that's going to work for the U.S., but is technically, let's say, an Iraq, right? But what happens if you don't put somebody else in a position of power? The region starts to destabilize. And that's how we have a lot of problems because the U.S. doesn't know how to mind their motherfucking business, right? Stay out of other countries' business and stop trying to be the fucking home monitor of the world when we got our own problems here in the U.S., right? You still won't address racism or even address the U.S. hand in slavery, right? Or talk about reparations, but we want to send millions, if not more than that, to other nations around the world to influence political decisions so we can get resources, as he says, at a cheaper price. And I'm going to go I'm going to go even further and say that we did this on a much smaller scale in Chicago. You'd be asking yourself, what exactly happened in Chicago, right? Well, after Mayor Daley decided not to run for re-election, he was the only mayor a lot of youngsters ever knew outside of Mayor Harold Washington or his father, the original Mayor Daley. Well, what happens? They try to get this tough stance on crime, and we took all the gang leaders out of Chicago. You locked them up, you went after them for conspiracy, for racketeering, conspiracy to sell drugs, murder, all these things, right? I'm not saying that it wasn't because they weren't doing dirt. But what happened is you destabilized the region, the same as if you would have removed, why didn't you just murder Saddam Hussein? Well, one would argue that there would have just been another person of power there, right? Well, in Chicago, you removed all of these people, and didn't have the ability to put people in power as gang leaders, right? Because these aren't countries, these aren't nations. Now, it's a nation in another form, but without all these gang leaders, it's chaotic in these streets. Instead of having 4, 5, or 6 massive gangs in Chicago, you fragmented all these gangs. So now there's like 70 gangs running around Chicago, and they might be the four-quarter hustlers, right? They might be vice lords, they might be GDs, they could be kings, they might be whatever. Maybe not the kings, but these dudes don't report back to the bigger set. There's no hierarchy. So you got these young dudes out here shooting people, and they're not accountable for their actions. And, it's just another play on how government has fucked us. And it's like, just mind your fucking business, shut the fuck up, and understand. I always say, I teach the kids now, when you go into a room, you know what you do after you make basic introductions? You shut the fuck up, and you look, and you read the room. Because you have to read what's going on before you understand how you're going to interact with the room. And sometimes our government just likes to make moves, right? That it's in someone's best interest, but they don't look at the big picture, right? The macro, the big picture. And I think Marlon Craft referenced that in another video where he starts talking about the micro versus the macro. Microeconomics are the smaller effects, right? The day-to-day, what you might see. But the macro is the bigger picture, right? Looking down from like a bird's eye view and what that means. This brother's intelligent. Anybody that can get the conversation going like that is just deep on another level, man. I am such a fan right now.
To defend the people's rights, but install dictators just for resources at cheaper price. What a shithole look like? Is it what the hood like? Where you could die any minute because of what you look like? Where children starving all because of discrimination in ghettos created by homeowners loan corporation.
Homeowners loan corporation. A lot of people don't understand that reference. And we referenced it just the other day on another Marlon Craft video, right? The homeowners loan corporation. Some would argue that was the original, they started what's called redlining, right? And identifying areas of the world as ghettos, right? Or not having equity. And what does that do, right? It limits the cost of the home, but it also limits your ability to create wealth. Because, we have it, let's say in Chicago, I have a property on the west side of Chicago, where if I were to just cross over the street, the same property would be a few $100,000 more. Well, why? Well, because it's a different neighborhood, technically. So, what they do is they draw areas, and if you live in one of these areas that's considered bad, these homes can only go up to a certain dollar amount in value, and that affects you when you go to sell, when you go to refinance, take money out, and get into other endeavors, right? But it also plays a part where they wouldn't let black people and minorities get these good home loans where they can live anywhere in the world or anywhere in the city or the state. They try to limit them and place them in certain areas. It's just that there's a whole homeowners loan corporation for an organization that's no longer there. They've done more damage in the inner city and our fight for generational wealth than a lot of organizations have.
Look like when children starving all because of discrimination in ghettos created by homeowners loan corporation was an agent of the government. So tell me what a shithole look like. Is it a place where we exist because they're unforgivable and walk around like if you not us we don't want to sit with you, where opinions with truth in them dismissed as hypocritical? Tell me, is a place a shithole where we lock and abuse people and cage the soul out and based on the color, skin tone, allow folks to make millions off their pain while they sit home smiling while babies crying because they fathers ain't never get home.
Oh shit, god damn, this brother is woke beyond. If this was a black dude, people would be saying, this man needs to lead the next civil rights movement. This is just a knowledgeable cat, right? The things that he's talking about are factual, and they're scary to talk about, right? You're talking about people in cages, right? Talk about what's happening at the border or what was happening in 2018 with kids being in cages because they're coming from Mexico and other places around the world. Man, it's just deep, and I don't know if it needs much breakdown, but trust me, what he's spitting is facts.
It's where we exist, cause the unforgivable and walk around like if you not us, we don't want to sit with you. Where opinions with truth in them dismissed as hypercritical. Tell me, is a place a shithole where we lock and abuse people and cage the soul out and based on the color skin tone. Allow folks to make millions off their pain while they sit home smiling while babies crying cause they fathers ain't never get home.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's an unfortunate reality, right? That some people, and some might argue it's the moves that you make in the world. But I think it's opportunity as well. It's so disproportionate, right? I live in the western suburbs outside of Chicago now. I grew up in Chicago. Do you know what the median income is in Chicago? It ain't shit. But there's people out here in the suburbs that just sit home and can make, I know someone, I'm not saying no names, but I know people that have, they've invested in themselves through education. But they're working multiple work-from-home jobs. Some jobs that are $80,000 each plus, right? So you think there's somebody working from home, making $160,000 a year, just at their computer working remote. And there's a lot of people that struggle. They're fighting for jobs at the Dollar Tree, Wendy's, and Walmart. It's just so it's such a problem in our hoods, and we have to get to the source of that, right? Why is that? Is it because we're not investing in education, or are we not investing in our communities? Like, what something has to give, right?
Millions off their pain while they sit home smiling while babies crying because they fathers ain't never get home. I'm trying to imagine a shithole aesthetic. This is where anyone with an amplified voice is prophetic. People who gave their lives for freedom go unknown, but we deify people who make phones. Tell me,
bro. He's saying, we create gods out of these people like Steve Jobs, right? But we don't talk about people that gave their lives for freedom, right? We only know certain bits of history about the civil rights movement, and they won't teach you this in school. And you have to ask yourself why. There's a lot of people that have fought that good fight and gave their life, legit, paid the ultimate cost. For things to be better, and we don't glorify them. We don't even talk about them, and that's one of the things I try to do on the station. Right? We created videos as breaking down Malcolm X's speech, Ballot or the Bullet, Martin Luther King's speech, the I Have a Dream speech, going over who Claudette Colvin was, Mansa Musa, just different things that are part of our culture that you just won't hear about any other way. Right, and there's so many stories. There's so many inventors. Now, there's so many people in history. There's so many people that were part of the Black Panther movement and these other movements throughout history that scared the shit out of America. And we don't talk about them. And it's like, we're as much to blame as others.
For freedom go unknown, but we deify people who make phones. Tell me, when our president called black countries a shithole, was I mad because that's racist to say? And I know it's wrong, but deep down I be thinking the same. And I would have said it to a neighbor over a brew and a J. Like, do I know wrong things?
He said I would have said it to a neighbor over a brew or a J, right? Is it something that we all say? Right? We know it's wrong, but deep down we think of these other third world countries and we don't think of them as real people. Like, why has our country taught us to think like that? It's just that make America first, right? Make America great again, mentality. Are we just thinking about ourselves and not the bigger picture, the macro, right? Are we not thinking about the entire world?
Down, I be thinking the same, and I would have said it to a neighbor over a brew and a J. Like, do I know I wrong things are wrong? Do I accept my many privileges and the role that I play when I play along?
Do I accept my privilege? I think it's so important that a person that's white, a male in the United States, understands that he has privilege. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't even mean that it's just something that naturally comes with being white, right? But to understand that is the bigger question. A lot of people don't get that, and they don't understand that they're in a position of power by simply being a white man. And I say, you can put me in a room and another person, a white person in the room, and you clean us up the same and all things equal, and you give somebody the job, they're probably going to choose a white person. And that could be for a variety of different reasons. but we have to ask ourselves why. We have to make it where we don't judge people, right? Judge me by the content of my character.
Privileges and the role that I play when I play along. Do I want a pat on the back for basic humanity? Would I still be righteous in the face of calamity? Tell me what makes a shithole. I think I live in one. Am I ready for it to change before I get my living done? This ain't a riddle, son. These are the simplest questions. If I knew I was making a shithole, would I switch professions? How we make a shithole on land that was never ours? And puff our chest out with no shame. How we get the power? Create a monster, the shortest way to get devoured. Look around you. A motherfucking shithole.
Yo, he said creating a monster is the shortest way to get devoured. Yo, that's just nice. Yo, if you're a fan of good music, not just of Marlon Craft, but you're a fan of hip-hop, right? You're a fan of the truth, spitting facts, right? Somebody with something intelligent to say, yo, we're growing the channel. We just started at the start of the year. We're already over 400 subscribers, and we're looking to grow this. So show your support, show the love, by also subscribing to the channel as well.